Hi everybody, I'm Simon Cooper from the Cooper's Strip Club. We've got an interesting project today, or this evening actually. I'm going to be showing you how we take this side to look like that side. These are Macrocarpa slabs and they've got some magic finish that wasn't quite as magic as they thought. So I'm going to first of all take off the finish that's on the surface. And so we'll get started with the stripper. What we want to do is saturate the surface, and so our stripper is a very thin stripper. We make it thin so that it absorbs better. You'll see the colours change quite quickly as it absorbs in. This is quite a large top. This top has been really hammered in the weather, and we've got splits. Macro's quite typical wood for all that sort of thing. But we've got knots, as you can see over here, and the finishes are all failed and silvered and all sorts. These acrylic type finishes, they look good at the start, but they don't last. This will go in, and in a few minutes I'm going to put some more stripper on top to keep it wet. So we're going to stop from time to time. You don't want to watch the whole process, every last little second of it, so we'll be back shortly. Okay, we've sprayed the whole top, and I'm using this white shield just to get it into these grooves to keep most of it off the other side. I've gone around the edge. Again, use a shield. If you look through here, you're going to see that it's darker through here. This is golden, so there's still that finish, absorbed it all up, all these parts. So on our guide, it says keep the surface wet with a stripper. So we're just going to saturate surface. We really want it to become quite soft and gungy. Something I didn't mention before, this whole system is going to require no sanding at all. That side that I've done completely without sanding. We've stripped it, and I'm going to show you later a process called grain enhancing, and it's quite amazing. So again, we'll just be back in a few minutes. Okay, so you can see this is quite mushy now. The varnish is really saturated it all up, and you can see it's coming back happily. I want to explain this part of the system. This is part one, and my camera girl, before it blows away. So part one is taking off what's on the surface. So obviously what's on the surface is all this old varnishy stuff they've used, and we're going to take all that off first. So now I'm going to do the edge of it, and I've got this brass detail brush, and it's quite a nice brush to use for this sort of thing. So get in here, so do the edge before we get into the top. Now this method can be used for all sorts of things. Decks spring to mind. People have got their decks and they've got this type of acrylic-y, oily type finish, and they want to know how to get it off, especially if it's a ribbed deck, and this is ideal for doing that type of thing. The method is pretty much the same. So you can just take a shot down on the ground here, see the ribbed deck, so everyone knows what we're on about. So this deck is all ribbed, its finish is long gone, but you can imagine the brush would just get into those ribs just as easy as this. So the stripper has dissolved the old finish, and we're literally just zipping around, brushing it away. So we're doing it in a out of the sun. The sun during the day was just way too hot, so we waited to the evening, so we just got to beat the night time. Should be fine. Just got a putty knife, and we'll see what this does. It should just come away. See all that. So we're just going to drag the old finish off. You don't have to push hard. It's all been gooey-fied. I'll just do a few strokes of this and then so it doesn't have to look ultra pretty at this point, because we're just getting rid of bulk. I've got sitting on top of the deck some plastic masking to protect the surface there. Okay, so I'll carry on with the rest of this done, and we'll see you shortly for the next stage. Okay. Taken off everything that's on the wood. They all came away quite happily. Now we're putting some more stripper on, this time getting what's in the grain. So this stripper is going to go deep into the grain itself. Just show you, we've got a huge amount of material off before. So that was all the stuff that was on the surface. So you can show the guide, camera girl. So this is now part 2. You notice part 2 is coloured in red just like part 1, so we're still using the stripper. The idea here is that the stripper being thin, it goes into the surface of the wood. Being that the stripper is very much close to being pH neutral, it's not going to hurt the wood. It's not going to bleach it, burn it, anything like that. And it's going to dissolve the finish that's deep in the grain. So we're going to give this probably about 2 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to give it a scrub. So we'll see you shortly. Okay, so just giving this a scrub now. So something in the gap there. Now if you have a look at the colour of the top, there's all this green mould. This table must have had its original finish neglected, and then it went green, and then that other brown goo went over the top. So the stripper is now going deep into the grain and bringing up all that stuff. So you can see all that green mouldy stuff, and we'll deal with that later with the grain enhancer. Now, it's on the guide, it talks about scrubbing with the appropriate scrubbing material in this part 2. And if I use our grip pads, which I've got here in my paw, it's going to clog up so fast you'll be taking shears out in grip pad factory. So we're going to use the brush. The brush will stay cleaner, we can keep it cleaner. So
show us the brush.
Show you the brush. Same brush as before. This is the brass brush, and so we're just giving this, think of it like a dirty surface, and we're just giving this, flick it everywhere, giving it a real good mash up. The strip is just broken everything up. So we just amazing how much, we took it off the blade before. It sort of looked like, oh yeah, it's pretty much done, but there's a heap of stained oil deep in the grain, and that's what really messes sandpaper around if you decided to go that direction. So again, we're going to just keep scrubbing this top, getting it all mashed up. Then I'll wipe off what I can and I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, we're giving this a decent scrub up. There's a huge amount of material coming off the surface. The brush is completely choked up, so they're easy to clean while they're nice and wet still like this. So I'm just squishing out the goo. Now, what I do is get my flusher, give that a squirt straight into the bristles. You can use a cheaper salt for this if you like. So you can see how quick those bristles just clean out because it's all wet. So we'll get that aside. And now, I'm going to do another drag off, but I used the 2-inch one before. I just pulled out the bigger 4-inch one and see what that does. That need good as well. So let's try the bigger one. So while you've got access to all this soft gooey stuff, so rather than wasting solvents and pads and things, let's just see if we can just get that off while it's nice and wet. So it's coming away really well. This is more exciting to watch, isn't it? By dragging it, there's just way less chance of ripping into the wood. Like we're at a teppanyaki. Just the thickness of that stuff, it's just an immense amount of material that was all down in the grain itself. Okay, well, we'll come back to you shortly again. Hi everyone, we've now finished part 2 on the guide. That's getting out what's in the wood. So another look at the guide there. So we can now move away from the stripping part to the flushing part, which is coloured in blue, and that's because the flusher is blue, so it makes it easy. But before we go there, have a look just how much material came off that side. It's an immense amount of material that stripper's got. So there was truckfuls of finish on there. So put that away. Now we talk about flushing. So I'll come down this end. So this is a paraffin based spirit, and it's not a neutralizer. Often it's mistaken as a neutralizer. Its job is to rinse away residues of the stripper as well as whatever finishes we're taking off. Now we don't do this tomorrow, we do this straight after the stripper because everything's soft and we don't want to lose that advantage. If we decide to flush it tomorrow, you'll use twice as much flusher. Now this pad I'm using, I'll have a quick look at that up close. We call it a grit embedded pad, and that's because there's lots of little grits in it. It's quite coarse, but it won't hurt the wood at all. We're going in the direction of the grain, and remember when this was made, this table, they sanded it. This is not straight off a machine, this has been sanded. So we're spraying and scrubbing all at the same time. With the stripper, you put it on and you leave it to dissolve. This you work it immediately. Now you spray scrub, spray white, and we're moving the rag around to pull that residue off the surface, and you use usually about half the amount of flush as you do strip. That's why in our packs we always have half the amount of flusher. Now when we did the other side, we discovered that there was this mouldy stuff, and part of the reason for the grain enhancing that we're going to do next, you can actually see little spots where the grain enhancers splashed across earlier, so you can see all this sort of grey stuff's going to go. So I'll do a little bit more on camera. I'll do this front edge. So spray, scrub, spray, wipe. That last spray wipe's really important. It gets all the residue off the grain and it's soaked back in. The reason we use paraffin-based spirit as a flusher is because the paraffin spirit takes a little longer to dry. If you use thinners, it dries so fast that it will drag the residues back into the grain, which also is what happens with alcohol and those sort of products. So we find that this rinse is just way more, gives you more time to work, especially outside. Like it's got a bit of a breeze here today, or tonight, on the Canterbury Plains. So I'm just going to continue doing this until it is all rinsed, then we'll have a look at it and I'll explain to you grain enhancing. Okay, well we're nearly done the flushing. Now you look at the wet colour, we have a saying that is the wet look is the finish look. So right now, that's what it would look like with a clear finish on, and a lot of people would be very, very happy with that. It's a antique-y, rustic-y look, but we wanted to go a bit further, and of course if you see the other side, that's what we are going to get by doing the grain enhancing. So it's quite a simple system to expand out a little bit there. I'm doing the just getting these edges done. There's a brown varnishy goo sitting on top of mould. Right. That's one of the reasons it probably failed a bit too. So we'll be back to you very, very shortly. Okay, so technically the stripping is done, and if you were happy with the wet colour, there's a duck, there's my gun, anyway, keep focused. So if you were happy with the wet colour, you could go on with the new finish. I know that we can get way, way better than this, so let me now show you about grain enhancing. So we have an ice cream container, and we have this product called Grain Enhancer. It's a white crystal. It's very scientifically measured. What we do is we shake some in. There's a little bit in there, it's a little bit like cooking. And we want a reasonable concentration of this stuff for this grey we're going to get out. And then we get the jug, which has just been boiled. We want absolutely scalding hot water. It instantly dissolves. And a brush. So that's all dissolved already. Now this is a bit of a treat, so check this out. This is so cool. A certain gentleman wrote a song about this. It's a kind of magic. I think this stuff either works amazingly or not at all. In this case, it's going to work a treat. So we just want to brush this over it. We're going to get this grain enhanced tonight, and then tomorrow morning, weather behaving itself, we're going to show you an interesting finish called moisturising. We want to let it dry off. So we'll just flood this with it. We'll be back to you in a couple of minutes. Okay, we've flooded the surface with the grain enhancer, and now we get one of our grip pads and a rag, and we're just going to give this a scrub. And you see the colour starting to come out. This also is really good stuff for taking tarnish off grass. This piece of grain here is pretty awesome. So, and you'll actually find more goo deep in the grain will come out as well, which I did on the other side. You can hear the grits getting into the sandpaper grooves. Stir on this edge, and then I'll do the other part. I'm going to then wipe it dry. So we'll come back to you shortly. Okay, well, it's now had the grain enhancer on it for about 10 minutes. It's been scrubbed, as you saw, and now I want to take some of this liquid goo off, and so a squeegee. And what we do is we just do it on a bit of an angle, so like a plough, pushing it in the other direction. So we're going to rinse the surface shortly, but again, this just makes life a little quicker and easier. My camera girl during the break said I should remind you guys not to put this grain enhancer on the surfaces you don't want it on. Like if you're doing it on a raw deck, the drips will silver, they'll make all the deck go golden where it touches. So be very mindful of, if you don't want to take a silver deck and have it all go golden again, you better not put it on there. Isn't that cool? This is just so much fun. Just wipe that down. Now, the white crystal, the grain enhancer that was liquefied with the water, if we leave it like this, you'll get this white powder forming on the surface as the water evaporates. So we want to give it a rinse to get rid of all that. So, we boiled the jug in the break, and we just want to pour some more water. So we're really just, while this is still wet, that's alright. This is just straight boiling water with nothing else in it. So what we're doing is we're rinsing the grain enhancer crystal out of the wood. Now, the wet colour it is right now is the colour it would be with a new finish on it. If the finish was clear, that is. And so that's a country mile away from where it was before. And this is all dried over here, so this is all just going to deepen up later. So there's not going to be a big difference between the two. And you'll see that in the morning. So, again, just give this a scrub, get a clean pad. And then we'll give this a squeegee off as well. So, we'll be back to you in a couple of minutes. See you shortly. Okay, so again we're squeegeeing off this time the straight water. It will be mixed with residue crystal. And this just gets all that out, but also it speeds up the drying process. We'll leave this to air dry overnight, and tomorrow I'm going to take you through the moisturiser, and I'll explain a little bit how this water that we've been putting on actually is going to assist the actual performance of the actual moisturiser we're going to use. So if you can remember what the before was before, and this has taken place in around about an hour from start to finish. So I mean, this is a big slab of wood. This is a very quick way to restore without drawing a sweat. So I'll just wipe that dry, and we will see you in the morning, 1 o'clock. Well, it's not supposed to be raining, but it is. It's all very wet. But never mind, this is just another opportunity. So come over and have a look at this wet colour, and this is what the table will look like when it's got the moisturiser on, and there's all this amazing grain that's developed. So it's pretty extraordinary, but better than before. So what we're going to do is change the plan slightly, and I'm going to explain the moisturiser. You will see it being used in other videos, but I want to explain this whole moisturiser thing. So here we go. So you can finish the table when it's dry with anything you like. You can use an oil stain, you could put a varnish on, etc. But the problem is that when wood is splitting, like all these pieces here and the knots, etc., they're like fault lines in the ground, and of course when you have an earthquake you know what happens. So we don't want a finish that dries hard. We want something that will flex and move with the wood itself. And also you got like the UV light that will just smash these finishes. So we developed a product years ago called moisturiser, and this is like a skincare for wood, and it's quite amazing for this type of thing. And so we'll show you, we'll academically explain it. So it's a blend of gum, oil and wax, and we stick it in a container. This will not mix with water. So the problem is if we put it on now, it's going to sit on top of the water that's on the wood. So we want to let this wood dry off, and then when it's all good and toasty dry, we then put the moisturiser on then. And so you basically just put it on a brush and then obviously slap it on. Now you put it on really thick. You don't have to be cautious about how you put it on, because it's not actually going to dry, it's going to absorb. And it's going to be really good in these knotted areas. The moisturiser is just going to soak into those parts anywhere where there's end grain. And the problem with these sort of finishes have been on already is on these end grains, this just continues to split. Well, this moisturiser will reduce, if not stop that happening altogether. So you put the moisturiser on and you leave it on usually for at least a couple of days. You let it absorb in, and then you keep an eye on it to see what fully absorbs. So again, like I say, these end grains where the knots are there, they're likely to drink it right up, and so you would just go along and daub more on those parts. And you can't do too much, it'll just drink what it wants. After a few days, and you're satisfied that it's not absorbing anymore because it's staying greasy, you then get out a cloth. There's my pocket, there it is, and we just literally go over and buff the surface dry. Imagine that that's moisturiser on there. You would remove that. Here's the dog. So we're dealing with animals and weather, and then you would have a silky smooth finish. It's quite amazing. and that's your finish. So it's a finish that will repel moisture. Now there's a few little tricks to using a table that we believe outside, and that is you have the table with a slight incline. So get yourself a couple of 2-inch blocks. This is actually quite heavy, and put it underneath slightly, and that way when it rains the moisture runs off. And that's a huge thing, because at the moment whatever finish is on there is just going to be like this big magnifying glass, and it's just going to destroy the new finish. But with the table on a slight incline with the moisturizer on, it's an amazing finish for outside. Now we're not saying that means it lasts forever. This is a product that needs simple maintenance, and so from time to time when the wood's looking a little lackluster, you just simply slap more moisturizer on the surface, just brush it on, get the grip pad that we used earlier in the stripping process, and you just give it a quick scrub and then leave it overnight and buff it off the next day. And if you do that, there is no reason this table will ever need to be stripped again. It's a simple maintenance that really does work. We're not finishes that say, hey, just put it on and never do a thing with it. They will always fail. And I think that's about it. And according to movie magic, in a few seconds you're going to see some finished photographs. Our owner of the table is going to moisturize it and buff it up for us and take some nice pictures, and you'll see them momentarily. So thanks for tuning in. See you next time.